He signaled from the Yalari had reached Earth, but it did not arrive like a polite request. It arrived as a scream, raw, urgent, impossible to ignore. Every time the transmission repeated, the faces of burning cities, terrified families, and desperate children filled the screens of the United Terran Command. In the heart of the command center, General Carter stood motionless, absorbing each word, each image. His mind wandered to his own homeworld, Earth, scarred and battered by storms, earthquakes, and relentless survival. Humanity had been born into hardship. They had learned to endure, to fight, and to protect. They understood suffering. They understood fear. The council chambers of the Terran Command were tense. Advisors whispered nervously. "We cannot interfere in foreign wars," said the chief diplomat. "The Krail Dominion is far stronger than anything we can handle. Engaging them could bring ruin to Earth itself." But Carter shook his head. "We are not here to think like the Council. We are not here to calculate political gain. We are here to answer a cry for help. They have no one. And this is who we are." Silence fell. The room, filled with strategists, engineers, and officers, felt the weight of his words. For a moment, the galaxy outside seemed irrelevant. What mattered was that somewhere in a dark corner of the stars, a people were dying. Humanity could not turn away. The first preparations began immediately. Ships were readied, weapons loaded, and volunteers lined up in thousands. They were young and old, seasoned veterans and raw recruits alike. Some were soldiers by training, others farmers, engineers, even teachers. Anyone willing to fight for those who could not defend themselves. A young pilot named Lena Voss tightened her grip on her helmet. "I've trained my whole life for this," she whispered to her brother who stood beside her. "Not for glory, not for medals, but because it's right." Her brother nodded, swallowing hard. "Then we do it," he said. "Even if we never return, even if no one remembers. We do it because we can." The Yalari did not know it yet, but their signal had awakened something different in humanity. While the galaxy had closed its doors and ignored them, Earth's Deathworlders felt a call. They had survived the harshest conditions. They had faced impossible odds, and they had built a species that could endure anything. Humanity was not born to watch suffering. Humanity was born to act even when the cost was high. Meanwhile, across the command center, maps of Krail fleets and Yalari territories were projected into holographic displays. The numbers were terrifying. The Dominion had far more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. Many Terrans looked at the projections with fear in their eyes. They had fought wars before, but nothing like this. And yet Carter's eyes burned with determination. "We do not fight for numbers," he said. "We fight for life. We fight for hope. We fight for those who have no one left. That is why we will win." Training intensified. Humans practiced in zero-gravity simulators, mastering the most advanced weaponry. Pilots pushed their bodies to the limit. Engineers worked day and night to outfit ships with every advantage they could muster. Every Terran knew this was not just a battle. It was a declaration that humanity would not ignore the helpless, that they would stand against the darkness when the galaxy turned away. In secret communications, Carter sent messages to every known Yalari settlement. "We are coming," the message said. "Hold on, you are not alone." Earth answers. The Yalari, hearing this distant promise for the first time, could hardly believe it. Their hearts had been crushed by despair so often that hope had become fragile, almost painful. Yet the promise of help sparked something long buried. In the trembling voices of their leaders, in the soft murmurs of children clinging to parents, hope stirred once more. Perhaps, just perhaps, they would survive. And on Earth, the volunteers looked up at the night sky. For them, the stars were no longer empty. Each one was a challenge, a call, a chance to do what humanity had always done. Rise when others faltered, fight when others fled, protect when others abandoned. No one had asked them to. No one had demanded it. The Galactic Council had turned away. The empires had refused. But humans were not like the others. They did not need permission. They did not wait for approval. They acted, because that was who they were. As fleets assembled, as pilots climbed into their cockpits, and as weapon systems hummed to life, one thing was clear. The Yalari would not be left to die, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity, forged on a harsh and unforgiving world, did not need the galaxy's approval to be the light in the darkness. The die was cast. The ships of Earth prepared to leap into the void. Somewhere, Among the ruined cities of Yalara Prime, the Yalari waited, trembling, watching the stars for salvation. And somewhere on Earth, humanity, scarred, unyielding, fearless, prepared to give them exactly that. The galaxy had turned its back. But Earth's Deathworlders had decided they would answer. The void was silent, but it did not stay silent for long. Far above Yalara Prime, the sky was black with the looming shadow of the Krail Dominion. Massive warships hung in orbit like predators circling a trapped prey. Their weapons gleamed, hungry for destruction. The Yalari watched from below, frozen with fear. Their homes were gone, their people enslaved, and hope had been nothing but a distant memory. Then, without warning, a new light appeared among the stars, sharp, blazing, resolute. The human fleet dropped from hyperspace like a storm. Terran battleships, long and angular, bristled with weapons that glowed with a cold blue light. Fighters streaked forward, weaving through the darkness with precision and speed that the Krail had never seen. They were not many in number, but each carried the weight of determination that could not be measured in statistics or firepower. "Attention, Krail forces," a human commander's voice thundered across every open comm. "You will leave this system immediately, or face destruction." The Krail laughed. Their massive flagship turned toward the humans, scanning the intruders. "Pathetic," the Krail admiral hissed. "These are small insects. They think they can challenge the Dominion?" The first salvo of Krail plasma bolts streaked through the void. Ships exploded in fire, sending debris spinning across the stars. The Yalari gasped as their world trembled under the might of the Dominion. Then the humans fired, missiles launched with deadly precision, tearing through Krail shields. Railguns cut their ships like knives through paper. Human fighters darted among the enemy, nimble and fearless, striking at weak points that no one else would dare touch. In the midst of the battle, a young pilot named Lena Voss took the controls of her fighter with steady hands. Her brother flew beside her, eyes wide, heart racing. "Hold steady," she shouted. "Focus. We protect them." The Yalari could hardly believe what they were seeing. Ships too small, too fragile compared to the Krail warlords, moved like predators themselves, striking with an intelligence and courage the galaxy had never witnessed. Why are they fighting for us?" a Yalari elder whispered, gripping the hand of a trembling child. "They do not even know us. They see suffering," another Yalari replied. "They see fear and they refuse to ignore it." The battle raged and human losses mounted. Ships were torn apart. Fighters were lost and brave soldiers vanished into the darkness. But for every Terran lost, 2 Krail ships fell. Every strike, every sacrifice carried a message across the void. Humanity would not abandon the helpless. In one moment of desperate courage, General Carter himself took control of the flagship Resolute. Sensors showed a Krail dreadnought advancing on Yalara Prime's orbit, ready to obliterate the last civilian stronghold. "We cannot let them reach the planet," he said. "We hold here no matter the cost." He directed squadrons into suicidal maneuvers, weaving through the enemy's fire while coordinating attacks on weak points. Explosions lit the darkness like fireworks, but each explosion was heavy with meaning. The meaning of courage, of resolve, of hope born again. On the planet below, Yalari families peered out from hiding places. Mothers held their children close as debris rained from orbit. Yet for the first time in weeks, hearts dared to beat with hope. The humans were fighting for them. Humans they had never met. Humans who had chosen to defy the galaxy and act, simply because it was the right thing to do. Hours stretched like days. The Krail, confident and arrogant, underestimated the humans at every turn. Their numbers could not compensate for humanity's unyielding will. Every lost human ship became a lesson. Every mistake exploited by the fleet to strike harder, faster, smarter. Finally, after a long, grueling fight, the Krail flagship faltered. Human fighters swarmed around it, tearing at shields and armor. Missiles found critical points, and with one final deafening explosion, the massive ship fractured, falling into the void in a blaze of fire. Silence followed the roar of battle. The remaining Krail ships retreated, their confidence broken, their control over Yalari space shattered. On Yalara Prime, people wept openly. Children ran into the arms of strangers who had come across the galaxy to save them. The Yalari looked at the humans with awe and disbelief. These were no ordinary warriors. These were Deathworlders, humans forged on a planet of storms and struggle, fearless, relentless, unyielding. General Carter looked at the wreckage floating in space, at the cost of the battle. His face was grim, but his eyes held fire. "We did not fight for glory," he said to his officers. "We fought because it was right. That is enough." And as the human fleet regrouped, the Yalari dared to hope for the first time in years. The galaxy may have turned away, the great empires may have closed their doors, but Earth's Deathworlders had answered, and nothing could take that away. The skies above Yalara Prime were no longer filled with the shadow of Krail ships, but the battle had left its mark. Smoke curled from broken cities. Fires burned in ruins that had once been homes. The Yalari emerged from hiding, their faces pale, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and grief. They had survived, yes, but at a cost that weighed heavily on every heart. For the humans, the victory was hard won. The fleet had been battered, ships shredded by plasma fire, and brave pilots lost in the void of space. Every loss was felt deeply. Each soldier knew that behind the numbers were lives, stories, families waiting on Earth. Yet none faltered. Humanity had never been a species to turn away, even when the odds were impossible. In one temporary camp, a group of Yalari children huddled together, staring at the human medics moving quickly to tend to wounded civilians. One child whispered to another, "They fight for us. Why?" A human medic kneeling beside an injured mother overheard and smiled gently despite exhaustion. "Because someone should," she said. Her voice was quiet, simple, but it carried a weight that resonated in the hearts of the children. Because when the galaxy turns away, someone must stand. Everywhere the same lesson was repeated. The humans worked tirelessly, not just to destroy Krail ships, but to rescue, to repair, to give life to those who had lost everything. Their ships became mobile hospitals. Their fighters carried food and water to the survivors. Every soldier understood that victory was not measured in destroyed enemies, but in the lives saved. The Yalari elders, who had once felt despair as deeply as the oceans ran deep, now walked among the humans, observing their actions with wonder. They had always known courage as a quiet, spiritual strength, but this was something else. Humans faced death without hesitation, risked everything for strangers, and never asked for thanks or reward. Yet the war was far from over. The Krail Dominion had retreated, yes, but they were not defeated. Their forces lurked beyond the edges of Yalari space, reorganizing, gathering strength, and preparing for another strike. The humans knew this. Each ship that returned battered and scorched was quickly repaired, each crew debriefed, each strategy adjusted. The war demanded endurance, patience, and unbroken resolve. One evening, as the twin suns of Yalara sat behind the shattered horizon, General Carter walked among the troops. His armor was scarred, his eyes tired, but his expression was resolute. He watched a squad of human soldiers helping Yalari children build temporary shelters. A small boy handed him a flower, a simple gesture, yet powerful beyond measure. Carter knelt and took it. "This is why we fight," he said softly. "Not for medals, not for glory, but for this, for hope." The humans trained the Yalari, showing them how to defend themselves, how to repair simple weapons, and how to endure fear without surrendering to it. Slowly, the Yalari began to stand taller. They had been shattered, but they were learning courage. They were learning that even when the galaxy had abandoned them, there were beings willing to fight for life itself. But the weight of war pressed on everyone. Nightmares followed the survivors. Children asked why their parents were gone. Elders whispered prayers for the lost. Even the humans, who were born on a harsh world and hardened by years of struggle, felt the sting of grief. Yet they carried it quietly, sharing it with the Yalari not as burden, but as proof that pain could be endured and overcome. In quiet moments, soldiers wrote letters home, thinking of their own families while comforting strangers' children. Pilots gazed at the stars, remembering the friends who had fallen in battle, and silently promised that no sacrifice had been in vain. Every heartbeat of every human soldier was a statement. We will not fail. Not now, not ever. And through it all, the Yalari began to hope. They began to see the humans not as strange invaders, but as guardians. They had been abandoned by the galaxy, left to die while others watched. But these blue-skinned warriors, so strong, so fearless, so devoted, had refused to turn away. Their courage gave the Yalari the strength to rebuild. Their sacrifice taught the Yalari that life was worth fighting for, even in the darkest hour. The galaxy had turned away, yes, but Earth's Deathworlders had not. And in the quiet moments between battles, when smoke cleared and children slept safely under human guard, The Yalari understood a truth they would never forget. Courage was not always born from strength. Sometimes courage was born from refusing to look away when the world needed you most. The war was far from over, but one fact was clear to everyone who had survived the first onslaught. As long as humans were there, as long as their fire burned in the stars, the Yalari would not fall. And perhaps, just perhaps, the tide of the galaxy itself could be changed. The war had stretched long and hard, but slowly, the humans were changing the course of it. Each battle against the Krail Dominion left scars, yet every victory, however small, sent ripples of hope across Yalari space. The Yalari, once crushed by despair, were beginning to see a future beyond fear. On Yalara Prime, humans and Yalari worked side by side. The Yalari learned quickly, absorbing the lessons of survival and strategy from their rescuers. They were no longer just victims hiding in ruins. They began to rebuild defenses, to construct shelters, and to prepare themselves for the battles ahead. The courage of humanity inspired them to rise beyond their limits. In orbit, human pilots flew daring missions, striking at Krail supply lines, intercepting fleets, and rescuing captured Yalari. Lena Voss, flying among the stars with her squadron, felt a rush of both fear and pride. Each mission carried risk, and each risk had cost human lives, but for every life lost, they saved 3, 4, 10 Yalari lives. "Keep pushing," she shouted over the comms. "They can't break us. We fight for them." The Yalari watched these human warriors with wonder. They had never seen courage like this. Even when faced with impossible odds, humans pressed forward with determination that seemed unshakable. It was not brute force alone. It was willpower, intelligence, and a refusal to abandon those in need. The Yalari began to ask themselves questions they had never asked before. "Can we fight too?" A young Yalari boy asked his mother, holding a simple rifle given to him by a human soldier. "You can," she whispered, hope stirring in her chest. "They fight. Tea for us. Perhaps it is our turn to fight for ourselves too." And fight they did. Under human guidance, the Yalari joined the defense efforts. They flew small craft in daring raids, repaired damaged ships, and defended key positions on their planet. What had once seemed impossible now became reality. They learned that courage was contagious. Humans had shown it, and now it flowed into the hearts of a people who had almost lost it forever. Meanwhile, the Krail Dominion began to feel the sting of their arrogance. Their armies had expected an easy conquest, a race of weak victims they could enslave without opposition. But humans were relentless, and worse, their determination inspired the Yalari to rise in defiance. Every attack that had once been simple was now met with clever maneuvers, coordinated strikes, and unyielding resistance. Whispers began to spread across neighboring systems. The humans fight for those abandoned. They risk everything for life itself. Some empires that had ignored the Yalari began to rethink their indifference. Some feared the humans, whose reputation as Deathworlders was growing like wildfire, and some quietly began to respect them. Back on the ground, General Carter walked among the Yalari civilians, observing children learning to defend themselves and elders rebuilding what had been lost. "You are stronger than you think," he told them. "And strength is not just about weapons or ships. Strength is about heart, about refusing to give up when the world has turned its back." A Yalari elder nodded slowly, tears glistening in his eyes. "You have shown us the meaning of courage," he said. "Not the courage of warriors, but the courage to stand for what is right when no one else will." The bond between humans and Yalari grew. They shared stories of loss and hope, of fear and determination. Humans spoke of Earth, a world that had survived storms, disasters, and centuries of struggle. The Yalari listened, learning that resilience could be taught, that even the smallest acts of courage could change the tide of history. Above the planet, the combined fleet prepared for another assault. The Krail, desperate to crush the resistance, sent more ships to overwhelm the defenses. But the humans and Yalari were ready. They had learned from past mistakes, they had grown stronger, and they had a reason to fight that no calculation could ignore: the value of life itself. When the first clash of the new battle began, it was clear that the tide had turned. The Krail no longer dominated the skies. Human pilots executed flawless maneuvers, coordinating with Yalari fighters in daring attacks. Ships that would once have been lost were now saved, and for every Dominion vessel destroyed, The Yalari felt a surge of hope they had never known. "This is just the beginning," Lena said to her squadron. "We fight for every life. We fight because we refuse to let them die when the galaxy turned away." And so the war continued, but the story had changed. No longer were the humans merely rescuers, they were beacons of hope. The Yalari had learned to fight, to stand, and to believe again. And across the stars, word of Earth's Deathworlders spread, echoing through empires and systems alike. Humanity had shown that courage was not measured by size or strength, but by the willingness to act when others would not. The galaxy had doubted, abandoned, and ignored the helpless. But Earth had answered. And with their arrival, the impossible became possible. The final battle was coming. Yalara Prime's skies trembled as the Krail Dominion gathered its remaining forces. Desperate to crush the survivors and erase the memory of resistance, their flagship, vast as a city, hung in orbit like a looming shadow, its weapons bristling with death. Every Krail ship moved with the arrogance of a predator, confident that the humans and Yalari would break before the first volley of fire. But the humans had no intention of breaking. From Earth, the fleet had come again, larger and fiercer than before. Each battleship bore the scars of previous encounters, yet they burned with unyielding determination. Pilots gripped their controls tightly. Soldiers checked and rechecked weapons. Engineers prepared for the impossible. They knew the odds were against them. They knew the cost could be everything. And yet they pressed forward, carrying with them the lives of the helpless, the hope of the Yalari, and the unbroken courage of a world that had survived its own death world. General Carter stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, staring at the vast Krail dreadnought. He felt the weight of every human life lost in this war, every civilian saved, every Yalari child looking up at the stars with hope rekindled. "This ends today," he said quietly, voice steady despite the storm around him. "We fight not just to win, but to prove that when the galaxy turns away, humanity does not." The battle erupted with a roar that shook the heavens. Krail plasma tore through space and human shields flared to life. Fighters darted like lightning, striking at weak points, dodging impossibly and refusing to yield. The Yalari joined in, their courage strengthened by the humans' example. Together they moved like a single force, determined, precise, and relentless. Every explosion, every maneuver carried the weight of desperation. Human pilots risked their lives to shield Yalari civilians, to rescue trapped families, to intercept attacks that would have ended worlds. For the Krail, it was impossible to understand. How could a species so fragile, so underestimated, fight with such ferocity and purpose? The battle stretched across hours, every second a test of endurance and will. Ships were lost, heroes fell, and the void was lit with fire. Yet the humans did not falter. Their determination inspired the Yalari to rise beyond their fear, to take up arms and fight alongside their saviors. Together they turned the tide. In a daring strike, Lena Voss led a squadron directly into the heart of the Krail flagship. Explosions rocked the ship, alarms screamed, and the Krail scrambled to defend their massive vessel. Lena's voice came over the comm, calm and resolute. "For every life they tried to take, we will fight. For the helpless, for the abandoned, for hope itself." The flagship shuddered and then cracked under the relentless assault. With a final earth-shattering explosion, the mighty Krail vessel tore apart, scattering debris across orbit. One by one, the remaining Krail ships retreated, broken and defeated. The sky above Yalara Prime cleared. On the ground, Yalari wept openly. Children ran into the arms of humans who had risked everything for their lives. Mothers held strangers who had become guardians, and elders fell to their knees in gratitude that words could not contain. General Carter stood silently on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the stars calm. He had lost friends in this fight, brave men and women who had given everything. Yet in their sacrifice, the Yalari were free. And for the first time in decades, the galaxy would witness hope reborn. When the Galactic Council sent a message, demanding an explanation for Earth's actions, Carter's reply was simple, firm, and without hesitation. "You turned away." We answered. "That is the difference between you and us." Across the stars, whispers spread. The humans of Earth, born on a harsh and unforgiving world, had acted when others would not. They had faced impossible odds, endured loss, and fought not for conquest, not for reward, but for life itself. The galaxy began to remember what courage truly meant. The Yalari rebuilt their homes with human guidance. They learned, fought, and flourished. And among the stars, the legend of Earth's Deathworlders grew. They were not mere soldiers or conquerors, they were guardian saviors, a species forged by hardship, unafraid to stand when the universe had turned its back. And as the twin sons of Yallara set for the first time over a peaceful horizon, humans and Yalari alike stood together looking to the stars. They had learned that courage is measured not by power, but by action. That even in the darkest hour when the galaxy turns away, someone can still rise. The galaxy had abandoned the helpless, but Earth had answered, and in that answer, hope burned brighter than any star.